Welcome to G3, a video and podcast series from 702 Communications. In this series, we review tech that makes our lives easier and our homes smarter. We also visit with guests from our community who create, share, and use that tech every day. In this episode, we're going to talk about one of my favorite hobbies, photography. I've been a hobby photographer for more than 25 years, but I'm still no expert. So, to talk more about taking better photos, we brought in local award-winning professional photographer and college photography instructor, Dan Francis. Dan, great to meet you.
Pleasure is mine.
Thanks for being here. So, everybody's a photographer these days, right? Because everybody has a cell phone. There's lots and lots of photos out there. And as good as cell phones are, and especially now with the new phones that are just coming out, they're better and better all the time, but there's still a place for, even in the hobby photographer's hands, a camera that's a little more suited to the task, yes?
Right. Yes, yeah. So we have a collection here from old...
all the way back to film here. This is how I started, was way back in film with this old Minolta. To one of my first, I don't have all of my cameras. I've had more cameras than this, but all back to the old 3-megapixel Nikon to now my Sony that I shoot. I brought one of my waterfall shots that I took with this little Coolpix 885. Like I say, I've been doing photography for a while, so I understand some of the basics of light and all of that. So this is a shot that I took with that old 3-megapixel camera. It does need a tripod if you're going to shoot anything, with a longer shutter time on it. But you don't have to have a whole lot of fancy gear, to just do a little bit of an upgraded photo.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to if you really love traveling. Honestly, you just need a really good tripod head, the camera and the lens that you hopefully already have, and then just spend money on plane tickets and travel so you can get some neat shots that we may not have here in our hometown of like hills and waterfalls and such. But I would think a great tripod head or any lens and camera that you buy today will get you the quality that you need.
Because this camera is older, it's mirrored, and it's not full frame. You got full frame and mirrorless over there. You want to talk about the three of those a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Again, speaking as someone that's trying to get into this as a hobby, full frame. Again, it just kind of depends on what you're going for. If you're into portraits and you feel like you're going to want to take more senior pictures or weddings, again, as a hobbyist or as a professional, full frame might be where you want to go, because it just does give you a better background blur for the full frame. Gives you just an overall better quality with a full frame lens. And the full frame, as easy as to explain, it would be like the sensor size would be about this size. And then with a smaller crop sensor, such as a Coolpix, would be more of like a postage stamp size. So the quality difference between the two, you can kind of see the difference between what's in the camera and what's, even your cell phone is going to be about half this size or close to this size, but it's going to be a little bit smaller. So when they say it's got 40 megapixels, but it's crammed into this smaller of a sensor, the qualities might not be there when you try to make it bigger than an 8x10. 4x6s, 5x7s are great. Even with the new iPhones and such, 8x10s would probably be working. But if you wanted to make it into a nice big canvas or something like that, a bigger sensor size will just give you better quality.
So talk a little bit about mirrorless.
Yeah, so mirrorless gives you an option to not have the mirror flip open when you're taking the picture. Every time you click that shutter, the mirror's flipping open. And again, without opening up the camera and seeing that, you can watch a video on YouTube maybe that shows you about mirrorless and mirror cameras, SLR, single lens reflex. And then mirrorless is just that there is no movement in the camera. It's steady. It's a little bit more silent. You can do silent mode on this, where if you take a picture, it won't make any noise at all. So that's kind of
there's
a
no
neat
shutter
feature.
clack at all.
Yeah, there's just you don't even know you're taking the picture. The only sound is you hitting the button.
Yeah,
and so that's kind of nice for if you're doing behind the scenes or something like that with movies or documenting this kind of thing.
You talked a little bit about the zoom versus the prime lens. Do you want to talk just a little bit about, should a hobbyist spend the money on a prime lens?
Right away, I would say no, just because if you drop in the word hobbyist, they don't need it. If you're thinking about, again, people that took pictures with film cameras, they were able to do that, with some prime lenses and then some that had zoom. But prime lenses are just that. I mean, this is a solid 56 millimeter lens, but it's at 1.2. So I can constantly just keep it at 1.2, or I can go all the way to like f16 and such. But it's just, if I need to zoom in, I need to move my feet. If I want to zoom out, I need to take a step back, because this one is just a solid 56. This would be a lens that would be great for portraits. This would be great for, again, wildlife to a point. Again, not something that would be a little bit too far of a distance away, but that you can always put an extender on it, which is like a $200 little thing that you just put on the edge of there, and it doubles it. So this 200 actually becomes a 400, and that would be a great investment if you're going again into wildlife photography, sports, possibly. Sometimes the quality might not necessarily quality, but just the focusing might take a little longer with an extender on there.
Right.
Like the air show, you can zoom in on the person's head, but then you have to be exactly on that head, because then the plane's taking off and it's hard to follow it at 400 millimeters.
We've got the gear, we shot the shot. Post-processing.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And so I do very little post-processing. I might move light levels a little bit. I'm kind of minimalist about this. I use the most affordable gear I can. I try to line up the shot the best I can. I take it and I tweak it just a little bit, and that's good. But sometimes people really want to make different stuff pop, and they really want to pull out different elements and different balances and whatever. So if you really want to play around in post, what most basic software, let's start there, what should people be looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. There's more options today with the technology. I mean, if you buy a Mac, you have iPhoto, or you have apps that can do a lot of things, a lot of different filters and such that people use to, whether it is making their pictures lighter, doing more of a saturation, and then sharpening and such. So there is apps out there. Link below. Just
But
Lightroom, but yeah, you've got your
Photoshop
basics. So you have Adobe Lightroom is going to be your main focus. If you are going to be a hobbyist, it's still a great thing to learn, even as a professional. But Adobe Lightroom, Adobe Photoshop comes in a package deal for about $10 a month. So it's just part of that subscription phase that we're going in right now, where it's $10.
Software as a service.
Yep. It's a cup of, maybe 2 cups of coffee, and you've paid for your editing services for the month. But Lightroom gives you a lot of, I would say 90% of the stuff that you would need to do is in Lightroom. Photoshop is just to the next degree of making multiple images of collages and such, and things that, but Lightroom, that's the main editing, is that you can do almost everything out of there. You can print, you can make books, you can just edit all night. I was editing till 2 a.m. last night, just in Lightroom. So Photoshop is a little bit more of the details of a professional. I mean, but as a hobbyist, Lightroom is probably the best use of their time and money.
Cool. So we've got the gear, we've taken the shot, we've done our editing. Now, where do you keep all these photos?
Yep. So again, that's...
and can we maybe encourage people to cull some of the photos they take? I mean, because a lot of hobby photographers are taking 2,000 pictures, and you want 6.
Yeah.
Don't keep the rest of them.
Yeah. Think of it as almost like a film camera. You get 24 exposures, and maybe 12 of them are good. And if you take 2,000 pictures in a digital camera, 12 of them are probably still good.
Exactly.
So going through all that editing is time. It's just going through all those images, A or B, B or C, and you're spending way too much time editing. So really figure out what pictures you want to photograph. Again, if it's a series of birds flying through, you might have to do it on burst mode and take 20 pictures of that. But figure out which is one good one. And with Lightroom, you can color coordinate it. So if you really like a picture, you can give it a red color, and then you can sort by just the red colors. So that's again Lightroom with the editing process of doing that, getting it down, and then to actually save all this stuff, gigabytes upon gigabytes upon gigabytes into terabytes.
Yep.
Again, if you want to have access to it at all times, external drives, there's RAID systems where you can back up a backup. You can do it wirelessly. You can do it off-site.
Yeah.
So you can have it here, and then also if you have it at a different location, it can kind of like tether it and just keep it as 2 copies. But the biggest thing is just to always have backups of your backups.
Yep.
So whether it's external hard drives, I think you can get like 4 terabytes for $100.
Yep.
That should last you a week. So then, so then you just kind of keep buying those external hard drives. If you put it online, obviously you're just putting your pictures into someone else's like online. Hopefully they're still in business in 2 years. You know, it's like, it's hard to say what, where you want to put it offline, just so you have a backup of it.
Yep.
But you should never have it just as at your house.
Yep.
You shouldn't just have it in one location.
Well, we've talked about a lot here. So Dan, thank you so much for being here
thanks
today.
for asking
We
me to be
talked
here.
about a lot of stuff. We clearly have a passion for photography, and that's great. So we showed some of my photos.
Right.
Yours are much better. So where can our audience find more about your work and learn more about what you do?
Sure. Website, danfrancisphotography.com. It kind of gives you my main page. I do a lot of architecture and headshot photography. But if you click on that fine art tab on the top, there's a lot of like my personal projects that I like to work on, with whether it's downtown Fargo or just my story-driven images. So that's going to be all on my website, or Instagram is Dan Francis Photo.
And that's it. This is a wrap for this episode of G3. I hope you liked this conversation that we had about photography. If you did, let us know. Comment on the video, like, share, subscribe, and tell all your friends about us, because we've got a lot more great content coming up. And don't forget to check me out on my guest appearances on Valley News Live's North Dakota Today, where I dive into more of our favorite tech. So until next time, I'm Brian Crommett. This is G3.